right? And violence is subject to the law of diminishing return, right? There comes a point where the citizenry is no longer afraid. What they did like last night at Sharif University, which only makes the people angrier and also leads to further defection from the regime, right? So I think this is the fundamental problem that the Islamic Republic is facing right now. You do not have the winning arguments to win over the hearts and minds. Therefore, you resort to violence, right? And violence is subject to the law of diminishing return, right? There comes a point where the citizenry is no longer afraid, right? Of that type of repression and the radicalization.
Which to a certain extent we're there. I mean, we interviewed people on the ground, demonstrators last week, and these brave young women and men were saying, I'm willing to die. I'm at that point. I take off my hijab and I go in front of them, and whatever will happen. I want freedom.
Right. And again, I think rightfully so. What we have seen over the course of particularly the last decade is that we saw that this solution of presented by the reformists within the regime, gradual incremental change has not worked, right? Look what happened over the last 2 years, right? We had the lowest percentage of participation in the Majlis election, right, in 2020. Yeah. And then, in the presidential election last year in 2021, where everything again was handpicked so that Mr. Raisi could emerge victorious. Yeah. Or imagine right now, right, the leading two candidates who are being mentioned as successors to Mr. Khamenei are either his son or Mr. Raisi. Neither one of these folks has any type of political capital, right, with the citizenry. So imagine even, if they survive this round, which they very much might still do, right? Because I think when we look at revolutions, remember, it's not just the wishes of the opposition, but also the capabilities of the ruling class, right? And I think that's where, we need to, keep this in mind. But as I said, let's imagine that they even survive this one, okay? The frequency of protests is picking up, right, in Iran. Yes. Every time it's a different, topic. Sometimes it's escalating, increasing the price of petroleum that led to the protests of, a few years ago. This time around, right, again, one of the nice features of this round of protests is that this is not protests that are economic in nature, right? People are asking for political demands, right? There is nothing economical in terms of what they're addressing. So political demands resonates with a lot of people, but in particular the middle class, right? The middle class, which, as we all know, democracy is built on the shoulders of the middle class. Right. So an Iranian middle class that has been suffering, their standards of living has been diminishing, right, by the day over the last 4 decades. We need to keep these folks engaged. We need to have them, have that say, be present, allow their kids to attend, these protests, etc., rather than wanting to keep them in the house, due to fear about what the regime might be doing.